back to my channel. Today's tutorial will be on how to make a reversible bonnet. So I'll be making use of this African print fabric and a satin fabric. So the first thing I will do now is to cut the satin fabric first, and to determine the amount of fabric to use. Now when you are making the bonnet, you have to cut it as if you are cutting a full circle flare, a 360-degree flare. For this now I'm using a radius of 11 inches. So I'll make sure I have 22 inches all through, like a perfect square of 22 inches. You can have more than that, but since I'm using 11 inches for the radius, I'll make sure I have 22 inches. So here, as you can see, I have 23 inches. For this part, to make sure you also have the same measurements. Can you see? I also have about 23 inches right here. So what I will do now is to fold it. So you fold it first in like manner. Can you see that? And fold it again in this manner. Now I said I'll be making use of 11 inches for the radius of my bonnet. So I'll measure 11 inches starting from here, 11 inches all through, which I will do right now. So I'll measure 11 inches. So 11 inches, can you see that? Then you will rotate it in like manner, 11 inches. Now I will cut it out. Now I will now cut the same way I cut this satin. I will cut out the radius on the African print fabric as well. So I will also fold it into 4. First in this manner, fold it into 2, then fold it again. Can you see that? So just fold the same way, and I will also measure 11 inches. So this is all we have. Can you see? This is the African print fabric. Now what I will do is to take it to the sewing machine. So this is the right side of the satin. I'll place them on each other, right sides facing each other. So this is the right side of the African print fabric. So I'll place them on each other in like manner. Can you see how accurate it is? Since I used the same radius. What I will do now is to stitch it. Just stitch it with 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. I'll stitch it all through. I'll take it to the sewing machine and stitch it all through. I'll stitch it, and so after stitching it all through, then I will leave 1.5 inches gap. Let me just measure 1.5 inches right here. Between 1.5 to 2 inches. Let me just leave 2 inches gap, so it will be easier for me to turn it to the right side. So 2 inches gap. By the time I'm stitching it now, I'll start the stitching from here. I'll start it from here, like 1/2 inch all through. Then I will stop here, leaving this 2 inches gap to turn it to the right side. So I'll go and do that now. So guys, I have stitched 1/2 inch all through. Can you see? I stitched 1/2 inch all through. Then, as I said, I left 2 inches gap. Can you see it? Which I will use to turn it to the right side. So the first thing I will do now, before I turn it, to make it easier to turn, I'll just notch all through the stitched part, I will make sure I just clip it all through so that it will be easier to turn. So when you are doing this, please be careful in order not to cut through the seam. So just gently clip it all through. So after doing that, I will now turn it to the right side from the gap I left. So I will turn it now. So guys, I already turned it to the right side. So can you see it? You can use a pressing iron to press out the edges. The next thing we are going to do is to, so this is the opened part, can you see it? So you have to still leave it like this. Now for the ruffles, we are going to measure 1 inch all through. This is the edge. Just measure 1 inch all round 1 inch. Just make sure you are stitching 1 inch all through. So I will go to the sewing machine now and stitch 1 inch all through. Can you see it? All through. But when you get to the gap here, the opened gap, make sure you don't stitch on it, don't close it. So I said you should not close the gap yet. So guys, I already stitched the 1 inch all through. You might not really see it because I used a matching thread, so it might not really be visible. But this is the gap, the opening. Can you see it? So I stitch 1 inch all through, which I said is for the ruffles. So I stitch it all around the flare. So the next thing we'll do now is to create the elastic casing. You know, there will be an elastic. So now I'm going to create the elastic casing. That is where the elastic will pass through. I'll be using this elastic, which is like 1/4 inch. It is not up to 1 inch. So this is, can you see it? It's a 1/4 inch elastic. It's 1/4 inch wide. So let me turn it to the satin part. It will be very visible. So I'll just measure 1/2 inch. Since the elastic is a 1/4 inch size, I'll just measure 1/2 inch from the stitch. So can you see it? So this is the 1 inch for the ruffles. Can you see? This is the 1 inch. Now from this point, now from the seam of the ruffles, I measured 1/2 inch, which will be for the elastic casing. So what I will do now is to take it to the sewing machine and stitch it all through. This 1/2 inch, I'll make sure I stitch it all through. I will still be mindful of the gap. I will not close up the gap yet. We are still going to close it up, but not yet. So I will start the stitching. This is the gap. I will start the stitching from here. Can you see it? 1/2 inch all through, 1/2 inch, till I get to this point, still leaving the gap open. So I'll take it to the sewing machine and do that. Now I have 2 stitches. Can you see? So it's likely you might not see it because of the color. So this is the first stitch, which is for the ruffles, and this is the second one. From the first stitch I measured 1/2 inch, which is for the elastic casing. So the opened gap is still there. Now the next thing I will do now is to pass the elastic through it. Now to determine the amount of elastic to use, just take the circumference measurement of the head. Just measure around your head, and whatever your measurement is, just take away 3 inches. So it depends on how tight you want it, but I don't want mine to be too tight. So when I measured round my head, I have 22 inches. So I just removed 3 inches from 22 inches. That is 19 inches. So that is what I have for this elastic. Let me measure it. I have 19 inches. So it depends on how tight or less tight you want it. So right here I have 19 inches. Can you see that? So that is what I will use, and I will get my safety pin. Can you see? Then to be on the safe side, I'll just make sure I also have another safety pin at this end, because I wouldn't want the elastic, this end, to get lost when I'm passing it through the elastic casing. So what I will do now is to take the fabric. Can you see it? So this is the gap. Just take your elastic through the gap and pass it through the elastic casing. You know, the first casing we have here is for the ruffles, so don't pass the elastic through the ruffles, the 1 inch gap. No, pass it through the ½ inch, which is for the elastic casing. So I'll just pass it through it. Can you see it? So this is for the ruffles up here, while this is for the casing, the ½ inch. Then I'll gently pass the elastic through it. I'll pass it through it, all through, and bring it out from the other end of the gap. So that is what I will do now. So this is the 2 ends of the elastic. Can you see? So this is the ruffled part. Can you see? It is already formed. So what I will do now to the elastic, I'll remove the pins. So can you see it? So you can just take it to the sewing machine and stitch on it in like manner. You place both ends on each other, or another option is to tie it into a knot, which is what I will do. I'll just make sure I tie it tightly into a knot. Make sure you secure it. Can you see? So it is well secured. And I will just fix it into the our bonnet is ready. Now for the gap, what we will do is to close it up. So I will look for the gap now, which is right here. Can you see? So first you will close up the ½ inch elastic casing. Can you see the gap? So this is it right here. Can you see it? So what I will do is to close up the ½ inch first. I will close it up, and also close up the 1 inch. Can you see? And come to the tip right here and just stitch it all through like this. Can you see? So that is how I'll close the gap. So guys, I've closed up the gap. Can you see it? So this is the final look. Can you see the ruffles? And you can just turn it to the other side too, which is why it is reversible. So can you see how beautiful it is? So if you want it to be bigger than this, then you can use your radius. You can make use of 15 inches or 18 inches for your radius. That means it will be very big. So we've come to the end of today's tutorial. If this tutorial has been helpful, kindly give me a giant thumbs up. And if you are yet to subscribe to this channel, please do that now. Click on the subscribe button below. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.